My fiancée stood up, lifted her wine glass, and smiled like she was about to give a sweet little toast. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "We've decided you're not my type." Not I've decided. We. Then she nodded toward her friend group, 5 people sitting in a perfect half circle, watching me like a jury that had already made up its mind. Some of them smirked. One actually whispered, "Finally." For a second, the room tilted. 2 years of love. A ring. Wedding plans. A life I thought we were building, reduced to a committee vote in someone's living room. I felt my face go cold, but my voice stayed calm. I glanced at all of them, then back at her, and said, "Thanks for clarifying. I didn't realize I was engaged to all of you." Then I slid the ring off my finger and set it on the table. And I walked out. What happened next proved I didn't lose a fiancé that night. I escaped a nightmare. I didn't cry in the elevator. Not because I wasn't hurt, God, I was, but because my body went into that strange survival mode where your emotions lock themselves in a box and your brain becomes painfully quiet. The streets of Portland were damp, the kind of cold that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel sharper than it should. I walked to my car like I was watching someone else's life unfold from behind glass. My phone buzzed the moment I shut the door. Ryan. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. I just stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Lipstick still perfect, hair curled for the stupid friends-only toast night, my engagement ring missing from my finger like it had never belonged there. Maybe this is what shock looks like, I thought. Because 2 hours ago, I had been a bride-to-be. Now, I was a punchline. I'm Emma Carter, 31 years old, and I'm the kind of woman people assume has her life together. I have a stable career as a forensic accountant, the kind of job where I spend my days tracing money trails, detecting fraud patterns, and proving what people swear they never did. Numbers don't lie. People do. That's why it's ironic, almost humiliating, that I didn't see what was happening to me. Not right away. Ryan and I met nearly 2 years ago at a charity auction event downtown. I wasn't even supposed to go. My best friend Sophie dragged me along because she said I needed practice being social. I remember rolling my eyes, gripping a plastic flute of champagne like a weapon, and planning my escape route. Then Ryan appeared beside me like he'd stepped out of a clean-cut romance movie. Tall, charming, soft-spoken. The kind of man who listened like every word mattered. "What do you do?" he'd asked. When I told him my work, his eyes lit up instead of glazing over. "That's actually impressive," he said. "So you catch people who steal?" "I catch people who pretend they didn't," I replied. He laughed. Really laughed. And something in me, something tired and guarded, relaxed. Ryan didn't feel like chaos. He didn't feel like drama. He felt safe. The first 6 months were easy. Sweet texts. Late-night takeout. Weekend hikes. We talked about childhood memories, future dreams, and the kind of wedding neither of us wanted. No circus, no show, just family and real love. When he proposed, it wasn't flashy. No cameras. No audience. Just him, in our kitchen, hands shaking a little as he said, "Emma, I don't want a life that doesn't include you." And I believed him. Because at the time, I didn't understand one terrifying truth. Ryan didn't just come with a ring. He came with a board of directors. The first time I met Ryan's friends as a full group, I told myself to be open-minded. "Emma, you're overthinking," Sophie had warned me. "Meeting friends doesn't mean you're walking into court." She was wrong. It was a Saturday night at this trendy wine bar near the Pearl District. Dim lighting, overpriced charcuterie boards, and the kind of playlist that makes you feel guilty for not sipping slowly enough. Ryan held my hand as we walked in, squeezing twice like he was reassuring himself more than me. "There they are," a woman called out. She stood up first, perfect blowout, white teeth, posture like she owned the room. "Maddie," Ryan whispered. "She's kind of the organizer." Organizer. That word would haunt me later. Maddie came over and hugged Ryan like she'd known him longer than time itself, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you're Emma." There was something about the way she said it. Not curious. Not excited. Measured. One by one, I was introduced to the rest of them. Tara, Olivia, Brianna, and Chloe. All 5 women were polished and coordinated like they'd followed the same Pinterest board. Their laughter landed in perfect timing, like rehearsed background music. I sat down beside Ryan. They sat across from me, in a half circle, like they were waiting to begin. Maddie poured more wine into her glass and tilted her head. "So, Emma, tell us the story. How did you two meet?" I smiled politely. "Charity auction." He bid on a weekend cabin package and, oh my God, Olivia cut in. "That's actually romantic." Ryan laughed nervously. "I mean, it wasn't that serious." Maddie leaned forward. "And what do you do again?" "Forensic accounting," I said. "I investigate fraud, financial misconduct, things like that." Chloe's eyebrows rose. "So you're like a cop, but for money." "Not exactly. I said, still smiling. But close enough. Maddie tapped her nails lightly on the table. And where do you see yourself in 5 years? The question hit like a cold splash of water. I blinked. In 5 years. Yeah, Maddie said smoothly. Some people don't believe in planning. Others do. Tara chimed in. It's important, especially for Ryan. He's very intentional. I glanced at Ryan, expecting him to laugh it off. Instead, he sat straighter, like he was being evaluated too. I clear my throat. Well, I want a solid career. A stable home. A family someday, maybe. Brianna smiled too brightly. Maybe. Olivia leaned in. What about kids? Ryan wants kids, right? Ryan's mouth opened slightly, then closed, like he wasn't sure what he was allowed to say. I do, he admitted. Eventually. My stomach tightened. Maddie nodded slowly. Good. Alignment matters. Then she turned back to me. And finances? Like, how do you handle money? Are you more of a saver or a spender? I stared at her, realizing the uncomfortable truth. This wasn't dinner. This was an interview. And the worst part? Ryan didn't stop it. He just sat there, smiling politely, letting them treat me like a candidate auditioning for a role in their carefully managed friend group. I smiled again, calm on the outside, burning on the inside, thinking, I'm not being welcomed. I'm being reviewed. On the drive home from the wine bar, Ryan kept both hands on the steering wheel like his life depended on staying perfectly centered in the lane. The silence between us wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like something unfinished was sitting in the back seat, breathing. I stared out the window at the rain streaking down the glass. My stomach still felt tight from the way Maddie had looked at me, like I was a product she hadn't decided whether to return. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. So they really liked you. I let out a short laugh. Oh, good. I'm relieved. I was worried I failed my first performance review. He glanced at me, confused. Babe, come on. No, I said softly. Ryan, be honest. Was that normal for them? He hesitated for half a second too long. And in that half second, I already knew the answer. They just care, he said. They've been my friends forever. They're protective. Protective, I repeated. Or controlling? Emma? I turned toward him. They asked me about kids, money, and my 5-year plan like I was applying for a job. Ryan tightened his jaw. They're intense sometimes, but they mean well. There it was. The first little crack. The first time I realized I wasn't dating a man who could stand alone in his choices. I was dating a man who needed a group's approval to breathe. When we got home, I kicked off my heels and went straight to the kitchen for water. My hands were shaking just enough that I noticed. Ryan followed me, hovering like he had something important to say, but didn't know how. Emma, he started. I didn't look up. Yes. He rubbed the back of his neck. They just said something small, like feedback. I froze. I turned slowly, cup in my hand. Feedback. Ryan gave a nervous smile. It wasn't bad. My voice dropped. Ryan, what did they say? He exhaled like it physically hurt him. They think you're a little intense. I stared at him. A little intense? I repeated. Because I answered their questions like an adult. They didn't mean it like that, he rushed. They just, sometimes you come off strong. Like you're analyzing everyone. I felt something in my chest go cold. Ryan, I said carefully. I am analyzing everyone. Because I'm sitting across from 5 women interrogating me about my uterus and my bank account. That's not what it was, he insisted, though his voice sounded weaker than his words. I stepped closer. Then what was it? He swallowed. They think you'd fit better if you relaxed a little. You know, softer. Softer. That word hit me like a slap. Because I knew exactly what it meant. Smaller. Easier. Less threatening. Less me. Over the next few weeks, it wasn't one big change they demanded. It was dozens of tiny ones. It started with casual comments Ryan repeated like they weren't poison. Brianna thinks you'd look amazing with lighter lipstick. Maddie said maybe you should post more couple pictures. People might think we're not serious. Tara thinks the way you talk about your job is a little dark. Maybe keep it cute when we're with them. Then it became direct. Maddie invited us over for dinner and smiled brightly across the table. Emma, I love that you're smart, she said, slicing into salmon like she was performing surgery. But sometimes you don't have to prove it. Olivia giggled. Yeah, you can just be pretty. I waited for Ryan to say something. Anything. But he just laughed quietly, eyes on his plate, pretending it was harmless. And that was when I realized something terrifying. Ryan wasn't just failing to defend me. He was slowly handing me over. And piece by piece, I was being reshaped into whatever version of me their little committee found acceptable. I wish I could say I noticed all the warning signs immediately. But the truth is, when you're engaged, you start excusing things you would have never tolerated while dating. You tell yourself, he's stressed. It's wedding pressure. It'll get better. And for a while, I did exactly that. Until the night, I found the group chat. It was a random Thursday, Ryan's guys' night, except it always ended up being him sitting in our living room texting his friends while watching a basketball game on mute. I had just gotten out of the shower when his phone buzzed on the coffee table, screen lighting up with a preview. Maddie, send the screenshot. We need context. I wasn't trying to snoop, but my stomach turned cold anyway. I walked over, towel still wrapped around my hair, and glanced down. Another message came through. Olivia. LOL, she really said that? Then, Tara, that's a red flag. She's acting controlling. I stared. My throat tightened so fast it felt like swallowing glass. What is this? I asked. Ryan looked up too quickly, his eyes widening. He grabbed the phone like it was a weapon and I was the threat. Nothing, he said. Just the girls being dramatic. The girls? I repeated. Ryan, what did you send them? He stood up, too fast, pacing. It's not a big deal. I held out my hand. Give me the phone. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. Ryan, I said slowly, my voice low. Give me the phone. Now. His shoulders sagged like he'd been caught cheating. He unlocked it and placed it in my palm. The moment I opened the chat, my entire body went hot with rage. Because there it was. A screenshot of a private text conversation between Ryan and me from 2 nights ago. I had said, Emma, I don't want Maddie making decisions about our wedding. I want this to be ours. And Ryan had replied, Ryan, I get it. I'll talk to her. Except he didn't. He forwarded it to the group. And now they were dissecting me like a lab specimen. Maddie, she's trying to isolate you from your support system. CHLOE. Classic controlling behavior. Tara, not saying she's toxic, but she's showing signs. Olivia, if she loved you, she'd respect your friendships. Brianna, she's not wife material if she can't handle your circle. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled further, and my stomach dropped again. There were more. Screenshots of my messages. A voice memo Ryan had recorded when he thought I was being too emotional. A picture of the wedding venue proposal I sent Ryan, followed by Maddie commenting. Too boring. She has no taste. Then Brianna. Can we talk her out of this? It wasn't friendship. It was a hostile takeover. I looked up, hand shaking. You sent them my texts? I demanded. Ryan rubbed his face like he was the victim. Emma, stop. They're just trying to help. Help. I repeated, voice rising. Ryan, they're calling me controlling while they're literally controlling you. They care about me, he snapped. And what about me? I fired back. What about your fiancé? He opened his mouth, then shut it. And in that silence, the worst truth settled inside me like a stone. Ryan didn't see it as betrayal. He saw it as normal. Like my boundaries were negotiable. Like my privacy was optional. I handed him the phone and stepped back. Ryan, I said quietly, the calm kind that comes right before a hurricane. From this moment on, you don't get to share anything about me with them again. He rolled his eyes like I'd asked him to stop breathing. You're overreacting. I smiled once, cold and sharp. No, I said. I'm waking up. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the dark with my laptop open. Not crying. Not spiraling. Planning. Because if there's one thing my job taught me, it's this. When someone shows you a pattern, you don't argue with it. You document it. And you protect yourself before it escalates. And deep down, I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. 2 days after I found the group chat, Maddie texted Ryan. Not me. Ryan. And that alone told me everything about how she saw the hierarchy. Ryan read it out loud while we were eating dinner. Maddie wants us to come over Friday, he said casually. She said she's doing a little engagement celebration night. Like a toast thing. I didn't look up from my plate. A toast thing. Ryan nodded. Yeah. She wants it to be special. Just the group. No outside people. By outside people, she meant me. Except I wasn't outside. I was his fiancé. Or at least I thought I was. I forced a smile. How thoughtful of her. Ryan didn't catch the edge in my voice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to. You'll come, right? He asked. It would mean a lot to me. There it was again. That subtle pressure. That soft demand disguised as a request. I could have said no. I should have said no. But I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I wanted to know whether I was paranoid or whether I was finally seeing the truth. So I agreed. Friday night arrived with the kind of cold drizzle Portland specializes in. Rain so fine it feels like the sky is whispering secrets against your skin. Ryan dressed like he was going to impress someone. Not me. He wore the navy sweater Maddie once said made him look like a husband. I wore a black dress, simple and elegant, the kind that didn't scream for approval. As we drove to Maddie's apartment, Ryan kept glancing at me like he could feel something coming. Just be nice tonight, he said quietly. I turned my head. Be nice? He swallowed. You know what I mean. Don't be intense. That word again. Intense. Like my standards were an inconvenience. Like my self-respect was a personality flaw. I stared at him for a moment, then looked back out the window. Don't worry, I said softly. I'll be whatever you need tonight. He relaxed, relieved. And it made my stomach turn. Maddie's apartment was upscale, high ceilings, neutral tones, expensive furniture that looked like it had never been sat on by a real human being. The smell hit me first. Candles, wine, and something floral so sweet it felt suffocating. They were all there.
Maddie, Tara,
Olivia, Brianna,
Chloe.
all dressed like they'd coordinated the vibe. Cream sweaters, gold jewelry, glossy hair. When I walked in, their eyes flicked to me, head to toe, in perfect unison. Not curiosity. Inspection. Maddie smiled wide. Emma, finally. She kissed the air beside my cheek like I was a distant relative she didn't particularly like. I noticed something immediately. The living room had been rearranged. The couch was pushed back, chairs placed in a semicircle, and in the center, a single armchair, facing them, like a throne. Or an interrogation seat. I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck. Ryan didn't notice.
Or he pretended not to.
Wine. Olivia chirped. Sure, I said. I held the glass like a shield. The conversation started harmless. Wedding venues, colors, Pinterest ideas. Then the questions came. So, Tara said, tilting her head, have you decided if you're taking Ryan's last name? I blinked. We haven't. Olivia interrupted. You should. It's tradition. And it would show commitment. Maddie nodded slowly. Men want stability. I took a sip of wine. Ryan and I both want a partnership. Brianna laughed lightly. Partnership is cute, but marriage is about roles. Chloe smiled as if she'd just said something kind. And honestly, Emma, sometimes you act like you're competing with him. Competing? I felt my jaw tighten. Ryan laughed awkwardly. Guys, she's just passionate. Maddie leaned forward, voice gentle, eyes sharp. We're not attacking you, she said. We're just making sure Ryan is choosing wisely. Choosing. As if I wasn't sitting right there. As if I wasn't his fiancée. As if I was a risky purchase they were trying to talk him out of. I looked around the room, noticing small details. Phones flipped face down on laps. Glances being exchanged. A notepad on Maddie's coffee table. And then, my chest tightened as I saw it. Maddie's TV screen was already on. Blank. Waiting. Like a stage before the performance begins. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a celebration. This was a setup. And I had walked into it willingly. I placed my wine glass down slowly. And for the first time that night, I stopped trying to be nice. Because in my bones, I felt it. They weren't here to toast our engagement. They were here to end it. Maddie stood up like she was about to announce a fundraiser winner. She lifted her glass, smiled at the room, and clinked a spoon against it, soft and delicate, like she wasn't about to rip someone's life open. Okay, everyone, she said brightly. Let's do our little toast. Ryan shifted beside me. His knee bounced under the coffee table like a trapped animal. I didn't touch my wine. I watched Maddie. Because the way she held herself, it wasn't celebratory. It was strategic. First, Maddie continued, turning toward Ryan. We just want to say we love you. We are so happy for you. Engagement is a huge step, and you deserve the best. The others hummed agreement, faces perfectly arranged into supportive smiles. Then Maddie's eyes slid toward me. And Emma, she said sweetly, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Not we're glad you're here. Like I was attending a meeting I wasn't invited to. I forced myself to breathe. Of course, I replied. Maddie stepped closer to the TV stand, remote in hand. And because we care so much about Ryan, she said, we thought we should do something meaningful. Ryan swallowed hard. My stomach dropped. I glanced at him. Ryan, what is this? His eyes flicked away. It's just a conversation. A conversation. With the TV on. With chairs arranged like a tribunal. With phones face down in laps like they were ready to record the moment I cracked. Maddie clicked the remote. The TV screen lit up. A title slide appeared in neat bold letters. Ryan and Emma. Long-term compatibility review. For a second, I didn't move. I just stared. My mind tried to reject what my eyes were seeing, like my brain couldn't process something this ridiculous and cruel at the same time. Then Olivia clapped softly, like it was adorable. Maddie worked so hard on this. I turned slowly toward Ryan. My voice came out quiet, dangerously calm. You let her do this. Ryan's face went pale. Emma, You let her do this about us. He stood up halfway, hands raised. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I snapped. Maddie cut in, voice gentle like she was handling an unstable patient. Emma, she said. Please. Don't be defensive. This is coming from love.
Tara nodded.
We're just looking out for him, right? Chloe added. It's not personal. I laughed. A sharp sound. Not happy. Not amused. The kind of laugh that happens when something is so insane you can't decide whether to scream or run. You made a slideshow about my relationship, I said. And you want me to believe it's not personal. Maddie clicked to the next slide. Category 1. Social fit. Under it, bullet points appeared. Emma prefers quiet nights in. Ryan thrives in social settings. Emma does not engage with group dynamic. Emma displays control tendencies. See examples. My throat tightened. Examples? Maddie clicked again. A screenshot appeared. My text message. Emma, I want our wedding decisions to be ours. The room went silent for a beat. Then Maddie nodded like she'd just proven a murder case. As you can see, she said smoothly, Emma shows signs of isolating Ryan from his support system. My blood turned to ice. I turned to Ryan again, voice low. You sent her that. Ryan's mouth trembled. I didn't, I needed advice. Advice, I repeated. So you handed her my privacy like a gift. Brianna leaned forward, eyes gleaming with righteous excitement. Emma, the truth is you don't really blend with us, she said. And Ryan needs someone who blends, Olivia added, like they were discussing pink colors. I stood up. Slowly. My chair scraped against the hardwood, the sound slicing through the room. Do you hear yourselves? I demanded. I'm a person, not a puzzle piece you can swap out until the picture looks right. Maddie held up a hand. Emma? No. I cut her off. I'm done being polite. Ryan finally stood, turning to Maddie. Okay, maybe this is too much. Too much? My laugh almost choked in my throat. That's when Maddie sighed dramatically and looked at Ryan like he was disappointing her. Ryan, she said, we talked about this.
We.
There it was again. That terrifying little word. The word that stripped him of being his own man. Maddie turned to the next slide. Category 2. Wife potential. I heard my heartbeat in my ears. Bullet points. Overly analytical. Career-focused. Risk of emotional neglect. Not naturally nurturing. Too independent. May challenge Ryan's leadership. I felt my entire body go cold. My fingers curled into fists at my sides. Not nurturing. Too independent. May challenge his leadership. They weren't evaluating my love. They were evaluating my obedience. I looked at Ryan. He wasn't stopping it. He was watching. Like he was waiting for them to finish, so he could accept the verdict. That was when I realized something worse than humiliation. He wanted this. Not because he agreed with them, but because he was too weak to stand alone. Then Maddie clicked again. Final slide. A single sentence in bold, centered text. Final recommendation. End engagement. My vision blurred. Not from tears, but from sheer rage. I stepped forward until I stood directly in the center of that half circle, forcing every one of them to look up at me. Is this your idea of love? I asked. A public execution with bullet points. Maddie's smile tightened. Emma, you're making this dramatic. I'm not making it dramatic, I hissed. You are. And that's when Ryan moved. He walked to stand beside Maddie, like he was choosing his team. Then he faced me. His voice shook, but he tried to sound firm, as if he'd rehearsed it. Emma. He exhaled. And in front of all of them, he said it. The sentence that shattered everything we were supposed to be. We've decided you're not my type. The room went still, like even the walls were listening. For 5 seconds, I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, at the man who proposed to me in our kitchen, who promised a life with me, who swore he loved my strength, and now was throwing me away like a rejected applicant. Then I nodded slowly, not because I accepted it, but because I finally understood. I turned my head and looked at Maddie, then Tara, then Olivia, then Brianna, then Chloe. I let my gaze linger on each of them, like I was taking their measurements for a coffin. And I said very clearly, thanks for clarifying. I didn't realize I was engaged to all of you. A gasp rippled through the room. Ryan flinched like I'd slapped him. Maddie's jaw tightened. Emma, Ryan started. I cut him off with one simple movement. I slid my engagement ring off my finger, held it up between 2 fingers. It caught the light like it was still trying to pretend it meant something. Then I stepped forward and placed it on Maddie's coffee table, right beside her remote, right beside her notepad, like I was returning company property. You keep it, I said softly. Since you all picked me, you can all return it. And with that, I turned my back on the committee, on the verdict, on the man who wasn't man enough to choose me. And I walked out. Not trembling. Not begging. Just leaving. Because in that moment, it wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was freedom. I didn't remember the drive home. Not the turns. Not the traffic lights. Not the wet reflections of street lamps on the pavement. I only remembered one thing. Ryan's voice. We decided. Like I was a defective product. Like my entire existence could be voted off the island. When I got home, I didn't collapse. I didn't scream into a pillow. I didn't even cry. I walked into my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed in complete silence. Then I opened my laptop. Because humiliation is one thing, but betrayal? Betrayal demands action. My phone buzzed in my hand like it was alive. Ryan, Emma, come back. We need to talk.
Buzz.
Ryan, you can't just leave like that. That was immature.
Buzz.
Ryan, Maddie didn't mean it like that. You embarrassed everyone. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I shouldn't have let it happen. Just. You embarrassed everyone. My chest tightened so hard it felt like someone had wrapped a wire around my ribs. I typed one message.
1.
Emma. Do not contact me tonight. I will reach out when I'm ready. Then I put my phone face down and began moving like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. First, security. Every password. Every login. Every shared account. Streaming services. Grocery delivery. Home Wi-Fi. Smart thermostat.
Door app.
Anything Ryan had access to, I took back. Second, the ring. Or rather, the absence of it. I stared at my bare finger, and it felt like a bruise. Third, evidence. I made a folder on my laptop titled Insurance. Inside it, I saved everything I could remember. The compatibility, slide title. The screenshots in the group chat. Ryan's texts.
Dates. Times.
Because people like Maddie don't just control relationships. They control narratives. And I refused to be the villain in a story they wrote. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Ryan. It was Maddie. Maddie. Emma, I understand you're emotional right now, but your reaction proved our concerns. Let's talk when you calm down.
I stared at it.
My hands shook, not from sadness. From rage. I didn't respond. At 7:03 a.m., Ryan knocked on my apartment door.
Hard.
Not gentle. Not remorseful. Like he had a right to demand entry. I didn't open it.
He knocked again.
Then I heard his voice through the door. Emma, this is ridiculous. I took a slow breath and spoke through the wood.
Ryan, leave. Now.
Open the door, he snapped. We need to discuss what happened like adults. I laughed quietly. Adults don't break up by committee PowerPoint. Silence. Then his voice softened. Too late. Too fake. Emma baby.
Please.
I didn't want it to happen that way. That way. I repeated, voice rising. So, there was a different way you planned to humiliate me? I didn't humiliate you, he insisted. You overreacted. I stepped closer to the door until my forehead nearly touched it. Ryan, I said, trembling now, you stood next to Maddie like she was your fiancée. And you looked me in the eye and said we've decided. Don't insult me by calling that love. His voice cracked. I panicked. No, I said sharply. You complied. Then I heard another voice, bright and sharp like a knife. Emma, open up.
Maddie.
Of course. I looked through the peephole. Ryan stood closest to the door, shoulders tense. Behind him stood Maddie and Olivia, all dressed perfectly, like they were about to film a damage control video. Maddie waved at the peephole with a tight smile. We're not leaving until we talk. My stomach turned. There are some people who don't understand boundaries. Because they've never been punished for crossing them. I unlatched the door, but only the chain. Just enough for them to hear me clearly. You have 30 seconds, I said coldly. Then I call building security. Ryan's eyes widened. Emma? Maddie cut in immediately. Okay, she said in that therapist voice. First of all, I want to acknowledge that you were triggered. I blinked. Triggered, I repeated. Maddie nodded like she was proud of herself.
Yes.
You have some emotional sensitivity that we've noticed.
And it's okay.
But when you stormed out, it reflected immaturity. I stared at her like she'd grown another face. You came to my home, I said slowly, to diagnose my emotions after humiliating me. Olivia chimed in, lips pursed. Emma, you have to see how this looks. You made Ryan seem like the bad guy. Ryan looked down.
Didn't deny it. Didn't defend me. Just stood there.
Again.
I felt something inside me snap.
Not loudly.
Cleanly.
Like a rope being cut. Ryan, I said quietly, move. He blinked. What? Move, I repeated. You're blocking my view of the person I actually need to speak to. He stepped aside, confused. Maddie straightened, almost pleased, like she assumed she'd won. I looked her dead in the eye. You don't get to talk about my emotional sensitivity, I said. Not when your entire personality is control and heels. Maddie's smile dropped. Excuse me? I saw the group chat, I said sharply. Olivia gasped. Ryan's face turned pale. Emma? Oh, so you didn't tell them? I said, voice dripping with contempt. That's funny, because you told them everything else. Maddie recovered quickly, lifting her chin. Ryan needed guidance. No, I said. Ryan needed a spine. Maddie's eyes narrowed. Emma, you're being hostile. I smiled. Cold. Yes, I said. Because I'm done being manageable. Ryan stepped forward, desperate. Emma, please. I made a mistake letting them influence me. You didn't let them influence you, I shot back. You outsourced your love. His mouth opened, and no sound came out. Then Maddie did what predators always do when they feel control slipping. She leaned in and said the most revealing sentence of the entire week. Emma, you're not what Ryan needs. He needs someone who listens. Someone who fits. Someone who doesn't challenge the group. The group. There it was again. And suddenly, everything clicked into place so violently I almost laughed. I nodded slowly. Then I reached behind me and picked up my phone. Ryan frowned. What are you doing? I held it up. I'm recording, I said calmly. Repeat that. Maddie froze. Olivia's eyes widened. Emma, don't be insane, Maddie snapped. Oh, I replied. I thought you loved documentation. Ryan stepped back like he'd finally realized he wasn't walking into a conversation. He was walking into a consequence. I took a breath and spoke clearly into my phone. Maddie Ross, on today's date, you just stated Ryan needs someone who doesn't challenge the group. Confirm. Maddie's face contorted. Then she hissed, quiet but vicious. You are not going to ruin this. You are not going to make us look bad. I tilted my head. You already did, I said softly. I'm just saving it. Ryan's eyes filled with panic. Emma, he whispered. I looked at him one final time, and my voice didn't shake. You didn't break up with me, I said. You fired me from a position I never applied for. Then I slid the chain off the door, not to let them in, but to step out. The hallway was bright and silent. My neighbors' doors like witnesses. I pointed toward the elevator with my chin. Take your things, I said. I boxed them up last night. They're in the storage closet downstairs. Olivia sputtered. You can't just do that.
He smiled her.
Yes, I said. I can, because this is my home. Maddie's voice turned sharp, losing the fake sweetness. You're making a huge mistake. I met her glare, steady as stone. No, I said. I'm making my first correct decision in months. Ryan opened his mouth as if he might finally say something real, but Maddie grabbed his arm, not even subtly, like he belonged to her. And that was the moment I stopped feeling sad. I just felt relieved, because I finally understood. I didn't dodge a bullet. I dodged an entire firing squad. For the first time in months, my apartment felt quiet in a way that didn't scare me. Not the kind of silence that comes from waiting for someone to come home and judge your mood. Not the kind of silence that forces you to shrink. This silence was clean.
Meaning.
I spent that weekend doing things that weren't dramatic, but were deeply symbolic, like scrubbing perfume stains off my couch cushions and taking down the wedding vision board Maddie had insisted we create. She called it manifesting. I called it control with glitter. On Monday morning, I went into work like nothing happened. My coworkers didn't know. But the thing about Portland is this. Social circles overlap like vines. And drama spreads faster than rain. By Wednesday, I started getting texts from people I barely knew. Unknown. Is it true Ryan's friends did a breakup PowerPoint? Unknown. Girl, I heard you ate them up in the hallway. Respect. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because the story didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever watched a controlling group disguise itself as support. Then the first real crack in Maddie's empire appeared. A girl named Lauren messaged me on Instagram. We'd met once at a group dinner months ago. She'd been quiet, almost invisible. Her message read, Lauren, I'm sorry if this is weird, but I saw what happened and I just want to say you're not crazy. They did the same thing to me. I stared at the screen, my fingers freezing. Then another message came, and another. Different names. Different faces. Same pattern. One woman said Maddie and the group had convinced her to dump her boyfriend because he was not ambitious enough, even though he supported her through grad school. Another admitted she'd stayed in a miserable relationship because Maddie told her leaving would ruin the group dynamic. One message hit the hardest. They treat relationships like trophies. They want a boyfriend who fits their brand. Their brand. That word made my stomach twist. Suddenly, everything about those nights made sense. The coordinated outfits, the curated dinners, the constant obsession with social media optics. Ryan hadn't been choosing a wife. He had been choosing a cast member. And I wasn't willing to audition. 2 weeks after the breakup, Ryan called me from a new number. I recognized his voice instantly, even before he said my name. "Emma, please," he whispered. "Just hear me out." I stood in my kitchen with my coffee, staring at the rain outside. "You're calling from a new number," I said flatly. "So, you already know I blocked you." "I deserve a conversation," he said. I actually laughed. "You deserved a conversation before you humiliated me." He exhaled shakily. "They turned on me." I didn't respond. He rushed to fill the silence. "Maddie said I embarrassed the group," he admitted. "Olivia said I should have handled you better. They're mad because you recorded Maddie. They think you're dangerous." Dangerous. As if protecting myself was a threat. As if boundaries were violence. Ryan's voice cracked. "I didn't realize how bad it was until you left. When you walked out, they didn't comfort me. They criticized me. They told me I failed as a man because I couldn't manage you." I closed my eyes. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. But sympathy isn't the same as trust. "And what do you want from me?" I asked. Ryan's voice softened. "I want to fix it. I want you back. I made a mistake." I opened my eyes and looked down at my bare finger again. The bruise had faded, but the memory hadn't. "Ryan," I said quietly, "I wasn't a mistake to be corrected. I was a person you didn't protect. But I love you."
"No," I said.
"You loved the idea of me, until the group told you it was inconvenient." There was silence on the other end. Then he whispered, "So that's it?" I took a slow breath. "Yes," I said, "that's it." And I hung up. That night, I sat on my balcony with my best friend Sophie. She didn't talk much. She just sat beside me with 2 mugs of tea and let my thoughts breathe. Finally, she said, "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," I admitted, "but also stupid." Sophie scoffed. "For loving someone? For not seeing it sooner?"
She leaned in. "Emma."
"Listen to me."
Her voice was firm.
"You didn't fail because you trusted someone. You succeeded because you left the moment you saw the truth." I blinked, something warm rising in my chest. "But I almost stayed," I whispered. Sophie shrugged. "Most people do. Because society teaches women that being chosen is the goal." Her words landed like a bell. Chosen. I used to think that was love. But now I understood something deeper, something I wished I'd learned years ago. Real love isn't being chosen. It's being respected. And respect never requires a committee. In the months that followed, I didn't jump into anything new. I didn't chase a rebound. I didn't try to prove I was worthy of someone's approval. Instead, I did something Maddie's circle would have hated. I got quiet. I went to therapy. I rebuilt my boundaries like walls made of steel. I started asking myself one question every time I felt doubt. Is this my voice or someone else's? Because that's the real danger of toxic groups. They don't just control your relationship. They hijack your inner voice until you can't tell what you want anymore.
But not me.
Not again. And the funniest part? I didn't dodge a bullet because I was lucky. I dodged it because I finally trusted my own perspective over everyone else's. And that, more than any ring, was the start of my real freedom.